Welcome back to the Adam Schefter podcast as we prepare to head into Week 10. And before we do, we want to share the news about the tragic passing of the Cowboys' young defensive end, Marshawn Kneeland, this morning in Dallas. Hard to imagine that news like this could be true, but sadly the Dallas Cowboys announced it this morning in a statement, which we will share and read right here. The Dallas Cowboys said, "It is with extreme sadness that the Dallas Cowboys share that Marshawn Kneeland tragically has passed away this morning. Marshawn was a beloved teammate and member of our organization. Our thoughts and prayers regarding Marshawn are with his girlfriend Catalina and his family." The NFL issued its own statement. "We're deeply saddened by the tragic news of the passing of Cowboys Marshawn Kneeland. Our thoughts and prayers are with his girlfriend Catalina, family, friends, and his teammates. We have been in contact with the Cowboys and have offered support and counseling resources." Just a devastating story about a young man whose life was in front of him. A team now that was on its bye week that obviously will have to cope with this moving forward. And it is so sad all the way around. There's no easy way to even discuss it, but we wanted to bring it up here because there's no way not to mention something as significant and tragic as the passing of Marshawn Kneeland. May he always rest in peace. And with that, we move forward to Week 10, to some of the six-pack topics ahead, and we welcome in my friend, my colleague, the co-host of the Pat McAfee Show, Ty Schmit, for this week's six-pack.
Thank you very much, Schefty. Appreciate you as always. Yeah, obviously a tough situation there. I'm still kind of gathering all the info. I think everyone's gathering information and kind of trying to figure out what happened. Just a good reminder of how fragile life is, and 24, so young, and that's so sad. But we're gonna do our best to kind of, move on and give people something to be excited about this weekend with some good games. So terrible situation, but with that in mind, Shefty, let's get right into the six pack for this Thursday. We are a couple days out from the trade deadline. We talked about it last episode. One of the more crazy trade deadlines in recent history. After the dust has kind of settled a little bit, where are you at now with everything? What is your biggest takeaway, or what are some things that we need to know?
Well, Ty, it's Thursday, and I think we're still processing the events of how the trade deadline played out. But here's where I'm at on it, the more I think about it. The arms race in the National Football League is underway. There is a race right now to go get your quarterback of the future without people even realizing it. The New York Jets have stockpiled 5 first-round draft picks the next 2 years. They are in the quarterback market. The Los Angeles Rams have 2 first-round draft picks with Matthew Stafford near the end of his career, even though I think maybe he would like to play a little bit more. The Cleveland Browns, perpetually in search of a quarterback, have 2 first-round draft picks. There are 3 teams right now with multiple first-round draft picks, all of them at some point in time who are expected to address the quarterback issue, whether it's in 26 or 27. We have a number of teams with quarterback issues themselves. How about what's going on in Arizona right now with Kyler Murray being placed on injured reserve? I think his future there being unresolved and uncertain at very best. He's due $38+ million in guaranteed money. How about in San Francisco, where there are 2 quarterbacks who have played exceptionally well? Does San Francisco keep both? Do they look to move on from Mac Jones or even, dare we say, Brock Purdy? What about what's going on in Jacksonville? Has Trevor Lawrence done enough to establish himself with a new regime in Jacksonville? Played well, but that is something that will be out there until we see how Jacksonville's season plays itself out. There are any number of teams that still need quarterbacks. There are all these teams that have extra first-round draft picks. And so it raises the question about where this is all going and who's going to pounce on their quarterbacks. Plus, I think we've seen that teams are willing to be more aggressive than ever before. If Sauce Gardner can get traded months after he signs a 4-year, $120+ million contract extension, if Quinnen Williams can get traded after going to 3 Pro Bowls at the age of, I think, 26, then who couldn't be traded? And as these teams see these big deals unfold, they're more apt to make deals. It's interesting because I had somebody suggest to me at the end of the trade deadline, hey, the Miami Dolphins should be in total sell mode with the New York Jets being in sell mode. The Jets are trading some of their best players. The Dolphins should go ahead right now because they're going to be in the quarterback market too and get as much draft capital back as they can, which would have meant trading Bradley Chubb and Jalen Waddle and any other player that teams had checked in on. My point to you, Ty, is the arms race is underway. It is underway, and we are going to see where it takes us this offseason and to what is supposed to be a great quarterback draft class in 2027. But there are going to be some highly interesting and intriguing moves made that are revolving around the quarterback position.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way it has to be. I think it's been very evident over the last few years. If you don't have a quarterback if you don't have a good quarterback, you cannot win a Super Bowl. You just can't. And he either has to be paid like that or, I mean, nothing else matters. We talked about the Jets defense for years now, how good it is. They haven't really figured out quarterback, so they've perpetually not been very good. If you don't have one of those guys, then you have no realistic shot of winning a Super Bowl. So it is what it is. And, if you're a Jets fan, it's Groundhog's Day because you feel like you've been in this position so many times, and hopefully this regime can hit on a quarterback like so many of the previous ones haven't been able to. I think you make a good point about the Dolphins because you already have the Jets rebuilding within your division. You see what the Bills are. Josh Allen's going to play a lot longer. You see what Drake May is doing. You're kind of just delaying the inevitable. If you already feel like Tua's not that guy, why are you knowing that you're going to have to blow everything up, but you want to just wait 2 years to do it anyway? I think that's a good point.
Well, think about that. Think about the Miami Dolphins here. You're in a division, as you mentioned. Josh Allen is in Buffalo. Drake May is in New England. The New York Jets are going to be getting a quarterback, a high-profile quarterback, in the next 2 years, whether it's the draft class of 26 or 27 or both. And Miami has Tua down there. At some point in time, we all expect them to be searching for a new quarterback. So they are, right now, in the most challenging position of all those teams, which could lead in the offseason to the Dolphins being more aggressive and more willing to listen to trades revolving around their players to get as much draft capital as a team like the New York Jets now has.
Exactly. And I guess that's the other part of the wait and see. If you're one of these teams who doesn't have a franchise quarterback and you've accrued some of these picks, now it's going to be, hey, are we going to trade for an established veteran like a Tua or a Kyler Murray, or are we going to wait till the draft? So that'll be something for us to keep our eyes on, as the season rolls on here. On the flip side of that, Schefty, let's go to topic number 2 of this Thursday's Six Pack. You got some teams selling the farm to get a bunch of first-round picks, and you got some teams who are serious Super Bowl contenders acquiring some top-line players. We have the debuts of Sauce Gardner, Rashid Shaheed, and Jacoby Myers in their respective new homes this weekend. What are you most looking forward to about that crop of guys?
Well, it's funny. Sauce Gardner plays an early game on Sunday. The Colts, where do they play? In Spain?
Berlin.
Berlin. Okay. I can't keep up with the NFL's international flavor. So they're playing in Berlin against the Falcons. So Sauce Gardner makes his Colts debut in Berlin, as everybody expected to be the case, right?
That's right.
We knew that all along. Jacoby Myers plays in Houston, and it's so interesting how Jacoby Myers in 1 week goes to playing against the Jacksonville Jaguars to the next week playing for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he makes his debut in Houston for the Jaguars on Sunday. Rashid Shaheed and the Seattle Seahawks, he gets to make his debut on an offense that has been incredible this season. It's another weapon for Sam Darnold, but it's more. It's Draymond Jones making his debut for the Baltimore Ravens. in Minnesota. It's Trevor Penning, the offensive lineman, playing for the Chargers potentially Sunday night against the Pittsburgh Steelers. All these players who got traded, they're going to be thrust right into action this week. Quinnen Williams actually gets a bye week, which he already had one with the Jets. He comes off back-to-back double bye weeks. Quinnen Williams is on an extended vacation here before he gets to make his Cowboys debut on Monday Night Football against the Raiders a week from Monday night. So all these new players, it's going to be really interesting to see the impact that they have on their new teams. I think we're going to see and feel these trades right away. How about the Eagles on Monday night? We'll get to them as well in a moment. But all these new players making their impacts right away, getting thrust right into action. By the way, the Jets on Sunday, well, we'll get to the Jets too, but they'll have new receivers here with John Mechie and A.D. Mitchell.
Yeah, it's not very often that we get this many what seems like seismic changes, I guess, but also, all of these guys are going to be massive key contributors, you would think, for these teams who traded for them, and all of them obviously have Super Bowl aspirations. So I'm very excited to watch this week. I mean, the thought of Rashid Shaheed with that Seahawks offense now is, I'll tell you what, it's pretty scary for a lot of other teams in the NFC. So this weekend should be fun watching all those guys in their new places and seeing how big of an impact they have. You just mentioned it there, Shefty. Let's go to topic number 3 of this Thursday's Six Pack. Take this any way you want. We mentioned the Jets. They're clearly in full rebuild mode. They have a bunch of first-round picks. Is the idea that they're going to give Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji the runway here with all these picks to reshape the roster to their liking? What is kind of the outlook for the Jets here over the next, I don't know, I mean, I guess, 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, listen, I think when the GM makes these moves, obviously they're going to be there. And Aaron Glenn, I don't think the Jets ever were changing him out anyway. I know there were people in New York asking that, could it be one and done? It was never going to be one and done with Aaron Glenn. The question did come up, and the question should have been answered. And I think now it's been answered because the Jets are showing that they are dedicated to building to the future, and they're going to give these guys time and a chance to do that. But we brought up the Jets this weekend, and the Jets play the Cleveland Browns. And these are the new Jets, right? Because there's no Quinnen Williams. There's no Sauce Gardner. I got to tell you something. As we record this on Thursday morning at 10:30, do we even know for sure who the Jets starting quarterback is going to be on Sunday? Justin Fields was asked that question, and the answer was, we'll see. I'm not going to say anything. Now, I can tell you this. There was a school of thought within the Jets organization that after the bye, after Tyrod Taylor had rested from the bone bruise in his knee, that he was going to be the starting quarterback. And then as that happened, Justin Fields goes into Cincinnati, engineers that dramatic comeback, leads the Jets to victory. So, do the Jets stick with what I believe to be their initial plan of going to Tyrod Taylor after the bye, or do you stick with the guy who just won a game for you? Ty, what would you do?
Ultimately doesn't matter. I guess that is the bigger question. Listen, you're paying. I understand you want to win every single game. The players in that locker room aren't showing up thinking they're going to get beat week in and week out. But you financially committed to Justin Fields. I know that, it's not the end all be all because it's pretty clear that they're looking for a quarterback like we've mentioned, but I don't know. I don't know if it matters at all. I really don't. I just hope, you hope that either one of those guys is going to be able to stay healthy. And boy, Jets, Browns, I don't envy anyone who has to watch that for 4 hours on Sunday.
And by the way, the weather, I think on Sunday it'll be okay in New York, but the weather in Chicago on Sunday is supposed to be horrid.
Okay.
Cold, wet, windy, bad, winter football weather in early November for Bears, Giants. But back to the Jets before we move on to the next topic. We don't know for sure who's playing quarterback. They have 2 new receivers in John Mechie, who they got from the Eagles, and A.D. Mitchell, who they got from the Colts. We don't know who's replacing Quinnen Williams. They got Quincy Williams, who's been benched at linebacker. Breece Hall wasn't happy he wasn't traded. There's a lot of things going on with the Jets, and it's going to be really interesting to see how this unfolds for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and it looks like Breece Hall's consolation prize will be getting 40 carries on Sunday against that Browns D-line and linebacker.
Tough line to run against.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. I mean, again, if you're a Jets fan, just hope that, something good's coming down the pipe for you. You got a bunch of picks to be excited about, but yeah, boy, I do not envy anyone who has to watch that team every weekend. Wow. All right, Shefty, let's move on to topic number 4 of this Thursday's six pack. We got a couple good games this weekend, and certainly, some games that we maybe look at differently now after the trade deadline. In your opinion, what is the game of the week?
Monday Night Football. Green Bay Packers, your Green Bay Packers, Ty, versus the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to get your take on your Packers here in a moment, but I will say this. I can't imagine the Packers are going to play anything like they did last week when they suffered one of the biggest upsets of the season at home against the Carolina Panthers. I expect Green Bay to come out even without Tucker Kraft, who's lost for the season to a torn ACL at a time when he was playing as well or better than any tight end in football, to play a really strong game. As for the Philadelphia Eagles, their magic number right now, Ty, is 6. Truly, 6 to win the NFC East. Any combination of Eagles victories or losses by the second-place team, they're going to win the NFC East at this point in time. Dallas at 3-5-1 is not catching Philadelphia. Washington without Jaden Daniels is not catching Philadelphia. The Giants blowing some of the games they did are not catching Philadelphia. The Eagles are going to win the division, and we'll see how that turns out. But it was this time last year, after the Eagles bye, when they had organizational meetings and came out in the second half and were playing at an unbelievable level, good enough to reach and win the Super Bowl. I'm sure there were plenty of meetings the last couple of weeks on their bye week to get things back in order, to get the offense humming again, to get the run game going, to do whatever it takes to put this team back in position, not to mention the fact that they added 3 key defensive players. They traded for Michael Carter, the nickelback from the New York Jets, who, when he was in New York, was signed to a contract that might have made him the highest paid nickelback in the NFL. And do you know who the general manager of the Jets was when they gave Michael Carter that big contract at nickelback? You know who it was?
I don't.
Joe Douglas.
That would
And
have
you
been
know
my
where Joe
guess.
Douglas is right now, Ty?
Is he back in Philadelphia?
Yeah, he's working with the Eagles. So I guarantee you Joe Douglas is like, we want Michael Carter to play nickelback. So they trade for Michael Carter. They trade for Jair Alexander, flipping a 6th and 7th round draft pick for a cornerback who has gone to the Pro Bowl, who when he was in Green Bay was a top cornerback, who earlier this summer in Baltimore, oddly enough, there were Ravens officials who told me Jair Alexander has been one of the most impressive players we've had in camp. And yet he couldn't get on the field for whatever reason. Something went amiss there. And I don't know if the Eagles can get that good Jair Alexander, but if they can, watch out. And then, of course, they trade a 3rd-round draft pick for Jalen Phillips, who played for Vic Fangio in Miami when he was their defensive coordinator. Vic Fangio is now the Eagles' defensive coordinator. And I'm sure he's going to get the best out of Jalen Phillips, who's on an expiring contract and set to become a free agent after the season. So we get a guy that Joe Douglas knows well. We get a guy that the Ravens at one point in time felt great about, who now will make his Ravens debut in Green Bay against the team he used to play with. And we get Jalen Phillips back with Vic Fangio on a team that could use some more pass rush. What could happen in the second half?
Yeah. I mean, that's, the Eagles. Hey, and when we heard Howie Roseman yesterday, in lieu of them obviously not moving A.J. Brown, he basically just said, hey, you don't trade good players like that when you're trying to win a Super Bowl. So the Eagles, quietly, because nobody really talked about it after Sauce Gardner went to the Colts and, Quinnen Williams went to the Cowboys and what the Jets did. But the Eagles very quietly solidified their team quite a bit at the trade deadline. You mentioned the Packers. I think this is the thing that frustrates Packers fans more than anything is they will be ready to play against the Eagles. They play to the level of their competition. I wouldn't be surprised if they look better than they have for the last several weeks and look like the team they were weeks 1 and 2. Obviously, Tucker Kraft missing hurts quite a bit, but they get up for these kind of games. So, yeah, I'm right there with you. This is absolutely the game of the week, and this will kind of give us this is kind of the jumping off point, when you're looking at who could get the 1 seed in the NFC playoff picture. This could do wonders for both of those teams going forward. So very excited for that game on Monday night. we'll see what happens. Let's move on to topic number 5. What is the second best game of the week in your opinion?
I like the Patriots-Buccaneers game. I think that's really interesting for a lot of reasons. First of all, both teams have some injuries that they're dealing with. As we tape this Thursday morning, I don't believe Bucky Irving will play. I don't believe Chris Godwin will play. I don't believe Ramondre Stevenson will play. I don't believe Kayshon Boutte will play. So both teams are missing some key players as we head into the action. The other thing is the Buccaneers are coming off a bye week. And I just want to point out, I think Baker Mayfield was a little bit more beat up with his hip and oblique injuries than people realized. I think it affected his performance. We saw that him and Emeka Egbuka were not connecting at the same level in recent weeks. Egbuka was dealing with groin, hamstring, all kinds of stuff himself. I think the Buccaneers needed that bye. The Patriots now are in a position where they conceivably could win the AFC East. And if the Patriots go down there on Sunday and beat the Buccaneers, don't you see Drake May being thrust right into the center of the MVP conversation, the entire MVP conversation? If they're going to win that division, Drake May is going to garner a lot of conversation to become the most valuable player. And there already are people who are saying that he's a junior version of Josh Allen. And again, we come back to being the Dolphins in this division and the Jets in this division. And that's why the Jets make the trade. And that's why the Dolphins are going to have to make more moves. Because if you're with Josh Allen and Drake May, when Drake May's career is starting to flourish the way it is, that is going to be problems for the rest of the teams in that division. Now, going up against Todd Bowles, his defenses, the exotic looks that he'll give New England, that's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds. But to me, this is probably the second most intriguing matchup of the weekend. I kind of like J.J. McCarthy and the Vikings versus Lamar Jackson and the Ravens in Minnesota. I think that's interesting. I think the Rams and 49ers, which we'll get to, always interesting. But I'm going to go Bucs-Patriots for my non-primetime game of the week that I want to watch on Sunday.
Yeah, that should be a good one. All right, Shefty, let's get into the sixth and final topic of this Thursday's six-pack. We didn't do this on Tuesday because of the trade deadline. Who are your 6 best teams in the NFL right now? Let's do some power rankings.
All right, Ty, we're going to start with the Eagles only because they are the defending champs. They added 3 players. They are right where you want to be going into the second half of the season. You could go with a lot of teams at number 1. Last week was a big shakeup. Your Packers lost. Your Chiefs, who we've had in the number 1 slot the last 2 weeks, lost at Buffalo. There were good teams that lost games last week. So the Eagles didn't play. For the time being, we're going to put them in the 1 slot. Number 2, the Los Angeles Rams. Again, people don't talk about the Rams quite as much. They play the 49ers this week. The NFC West is the only division in the NFL with 3 6-win teams, and 2 of them meet Sunday in Santa Clara at the site of the next Super Bowl. The 49ers upset the Rams in Week 5. They were 8.5-point underdogs then, and they beat them 26-23 in overtime on Thursday night. This is the 19th meeting between Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan, including the playoffs. Both were hired as head coaches in 2017. Feels like they've been with their respective franchises forever. They've split the last 4 NFC West titles, and I think Seattle's going to have something to say about who wins this year. We'll go with the Rams at number 2. Your Colts at number 3. They lost last week at Pittsburgh, another high-profile team that lost. But they added Sauce Gardner. They play in Berlin Sunday against the Falcons. The Falcons seem to be a little bit reeling right now. So if the Colts can go to Berlin, pick up a win, come back home, stabilize things, I have no issues, problems, qualms putting them in the 3 slot. Number 4, we talked about the NFC West and how the Rams and Niners have split the last 4 division titles. The Seahawks at number 4 in my power rankings. They are good enough to win the NFC West. They are good enough to win the NFC. They are good enough to win the Super Bowl. They are that good, and they added Rashid Shaheed this week. They play the Cardinals and Jacoby Brissett this week. We're going to put the Seahawks in the number 4 spot. I mentioned the Patriots. We're going to put them at number 5 because they beat Buffalo in Buffalo. They are in first place in the AFCs, and they're in the 5 spot. And in the 6 spot, we're going to go with Kansas City. A lot of teams we could put there. We could put Tampa. We could put San Francisco. We could put Denver. We could put the Chargers. We could put a lot of teams there. But right now, I think the Chiefs, even though they lost last week, They're still getting better. They're still Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Andy Reid. I'm going to go Kansas City at number 6.
Yeah, I mean, I like you said, I think any of the really at this point, any of like the top 10 teams, you can kind of finagle them around any way you want to, and I think you could make an argument for any of them. I went pretty similar. For one, like you said, I think Seahawks are wildly impressive. Their defense is unbelievable.
You
Their
going Seattle
offense,
1?
yeah, I'm going Seattle at 1.
Woo!
Yeah, Rams at
By the way,
2.
I can't argue. Like, you could make that argument. You can
Yeah,
make the argument Seattle 1.
exactly. And then, like you said, I mean, with how explosive their offense has been, you add a guy like Rashid Shaheed, that is very scary. I have the Rams at 2, like you said. They're unbelievable week in and week out. Stafford is ridiculous. Devontae Adams, Puka, they are very scary right now too. I put the Bills at 3 just because for what we thought of the Chiefs the last couple weeks, that was an impressive win, albeit at home. Colts at number 4. Eagles at number 5, and then the Pats at number 6.
And nobody mentioned the Lions, and I know they lost to the Vikings, but I still think the Lions may be the odds-on favorite in the NFC to represent that guy. Like, that won't surprise me, but they had a bad week at home against the Vikings. There are questions about the offense. Dan Campbell's going to have to get more involved on the offensive side of the football, some of the play calling, I think, for that team to reach its full potential. But Detroit, I still think, will be a team that we're going to hear from plenty. But I will say this, last week, with the way the games played out, it was a dramatic shakeup to the power rankings and how we view these teams as we head into the second half of the season.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, just another example that it is a week-to-week league. I mean, we've had some of these teams have been, repeat selections on here, but for the most part, a lot of these teams, I think we have a couple great teams, a couple really good teams, and then a lot of teams who could be great one week, could be pretty average the following week. So we'll see. The weather's starting to change. The football's starting to get more important. We have some, big name guys moving to different places. So I think over the next couple weeks here, we'll really find out who are the cream of the crop in both the AFC and the NFC.
All right, Ty, I want to, again, just point out how sad the football world is today about the news of Marshawn Nealon. Our thoughts are with his family, friends, the Cowboys organization on the tragic passing of someone way too young. Marshawn Nealon, team announced on Thursday morning, had lost his life. Tragic passing. Just an awful way to head into Week 10. Want to thank you, Ty, for your time today. I want to thank our great producers and friends, Dan Stanzik, Rob Lorenzo, you, the listener, for tuning into another Adam Schefter podcast. We'll be back in this spot again Tuesday after the Week 10 action for more information and insights about the latest week. Until then, have a great week, everybody, and enjoy the games.